Welcome to the Advance Your Art podcast, where we talk about the journey from artist to entrepreneur and everything in between. You've worked hard to hone your craft. Now take it to the next level with tips, techniques, strategies, and routines used by successful artists to grow their businesses and careers. Now, let's get started and have some fun with your host, Yuri Cataldo.
Good morning, Rich. Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, yeah.
So I'd like to start today by asking how you describe yourself and what it is that you do.
Oh, man, it's a great question. Do all your guests get that same question?
They do in the beginning, just because I'm curious, because it's one thing for me to read your bio, another thing for me to hear how, like at a party, you go up to people and introduce yourself or how you answer that question.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, in recent years, it has gotten more difficult to tell people exactly what I do. And everyone's like, you got to have an elevator pitch, a 20-second at the most, 2 sentences. But, I'm a drummer, it's kind of what defines me. It's my gift. I've seen how music changes lives, and so that's kind of what I do. I'm a drummer. I've been playing drums since 1976. So I'll be coming up on like 40 years here of playing this instrument. It's been really amazing. And that's under the entertainment umbrella. And then under that entertainment umbrella, I've expanded, to writing articles and writing books and, teaching. I do motivational speaking and, voiceover, a little acting and just a lot of different, producing, songwriting, a lot of stuff under the music entertainment umbrella. And none of those things would have happened if I hadn't learned how to play the drums,
Okay. Wow. That's you're definitely keep busy these days.
Yeah, it's my to-do list just stresses me out. I look at it, and I got to look at it and I know I'm getting closer to getting it somewhat done. And then new things keep happening and you're like, well, this is just, this is a problem. This is a first world problem,
Right. It's definitely a good problem to have.
Yeah.
Growing up, what are some important things that you learned or one thing from, a parent, a teacher, a coach, a mentor that really impacted what you do today?
Yeah, that's a great question too. I'm a self-starter. I really am. And, I'm really kind of grateful that I am. My parents taught by example. I just have a really intense work ethic. And, my dad, he went to night school for like 7 years when he was like working in a bakery, and he was in the military, and he was in the, Loch Ness in a submarine when I was born. I mean, he was just a worker. And my mom, just retired. She, as a nurse, she's been a oncology nurse, her whole life. And, talk about empathy. She has people die on her every day for like 40 years. Wow. And so she was a super, super hard worker. And so I think she's actually retired, but now she's busier than ever. She's like in the pottery club and the line dancing club and the macrame club. And she hosts like, get-togethers at her house and stuff. My parents they're just a real like go-getter stock of people. So I just learned that by example. I always had a paper route. I raked leaves. I shoveled snow. I was, I was a Boy Scout. I was, I just was that kid that just was a self-starter,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. So with music, since that's being the, your main vehicle, what planted that seed for you in your life that got you involved in music?
The exactly what happened on what day, I don't remember, but I just know that I'm a super type A, like high energy, like crazy kid. So I was probably like beating on things, beating on my desk, beating on pots and pans. And my dad said, Rich, do you want to play the drums? And I was like, yeah, let's go check that out. So he took me to this place called the Milford Percussion and Guitar Workshop in Milford, Connecticut. I'm originally from the East Coast. I spent my first 11 years in Connecticut. And I think that the deal is my dad, I think, always secretly wanted to play the drums. And to this day, I say, Dad, we have the resources. We have the time. I can get you a set of drums. I can show you how to play. He's like, no, he plays golf, but that's his thing. But That's what kind of led me down that path. And my teacher, Jack Berkey, said, told my dad, your son's really ahead of the game here. He's like devouring everything I give him, and he's really good. And then I got, pulled away a little bit. I was into Star Wars and stuff. But then back in starting in the fifth grade, I joined the school band, and that just kind of like started the fire again. And then the Police came out with a record called Synchronicity, and Van Halen came out with a record called 1984. Martha Quinn was the VJ on MTV, and I was hooked. I was like, this is what I am doing with my life. So at 12, 13 years old, I knew exactly what I was going to do, and it was just a matter of like getting the skill set and the experience together. And of course, my parents moved to El Paso, Texas when I was 11 years old, and there's not a lot going on in El Paso, Texas. So it was like a really good time for me to like buckle down and practice. And that, that led me to going to Texas Tech University, and I got my music education degree there. And then I ended up going to the famed University of North Texas and getting my master's in music. And of course, Dallas, Texas was 30 minutes away, so I cut my teeth playing music in Dallas. Great bands, top 40 bands, fusion bands, funk bands, soul stuff, big band jazz. I was playing on jingles. I was teaching. It was a good music scene. There still is a good music scene there. Mm-hmm. But I was having my quarter life crisis. I knew I had to get to New York, LA, or Nashville. And in February of 1997, I'm just celebrating 20 years of moving to Nashville. I moved to Nashville in 1997.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
I'm curious then, as a drummer, especially in your early days, how did you first get your first few gigs? Did you approach the bands? Was it people that you knew in school or in the local music scene? How did that happen?
Yeah. When you first start out, you become a creature of like, can I let your parents, my dad was driving me around, we're going to get you to sit in tonight with this band, these older guys. And then they let this kid's coming out tonight, guys, let him up, be nice to him, that whole thing. But yeah, in college, there was tons of, scholastic bands I was in, and then I would always seek out opportunities to be playing on the weekends or on the evenings, with bands outside of school. And, yeah, when I was in Dallas, Texas, it's like, there was a great scene there. So I would just go out and do the handshake and let people know that I existed, kind of pump my chest a little bit, and then you forge relationships, and usually through relationships is where those gigs come from. A lot of people think that the entire music industry is based on auditioning, and there is that element, but less of that and more of handshakes and relationships. And hey, I got this friend of mine that's a great drummer, and they're looking at the soft skills, well, can he ride a bus and hang out in an airport and take direction? And can he take a joke? Is he fun to be around? That whole thing is just as important, where the drumming is an expectation. Musicianship is an expectation. I think this goes for anything in life. It's like, you're going to have to be in that cubicle next to Sally, 10 hours a day or whatever. So, they're looking for some sort of, personality and people skills,
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's so true. That makes so much sense that it's, because you're going to be crammed in a bus with somebody for so long and working so closely with them, that if you can't stand that person, then it doesn't matter how talented they are.
Yeah. And people have, cliques and groups, and my thing is I run in a lot of cliques, I run in a lot of cliques, but the one I do have a home base clique, that, I am pretty much celebrating about 18 years playing with, two guys, Kurt Allison and Tully Kennedy, are two friends of mine that I met in my early days in Nashville. And we just kind of cultivated this relationship and made a rhythm section, bass, drums, and guitar. And we just kind of said, it's going to be us against the world. And we met a young, Jason Aldean, and we've been working with him for 18 years, 8 albums, 20 number one songs, sold out tours. He just won, Entertainer of the Year from the ACMs for the second year in a row. So it's like amazing stuff, which is very much a lesson in persistence more than anything, is just, making a decision and then following it up with elbow grease and persistence.
Yeah. Wow. That's absolutely amazing. So did you meet Jason then in Nashville? Was it just because of the circles that you work in? How did that happen?
Yeah, very few people are from Nashville, but now, like, it's so funny. When I moved here, it was like hay bales and cotton fields and like souvenir shops and like, cows mooing and giant belt buckles. And it was like, what is this kid from Connecticut doing here? But I knew that there was work to be had here. So I came here and, I met a younger Kurt Allison who introduced me to a Tully Kennedy, and Tully was connected with, through his uncle at a publishing company called Warner Chappell Music, a young Jason Aldean, and we started doing rehearsals together and doing small gigs around Middle Tennessee, and then doing showcases for record labels and recording demos. And that was going on for about 5 years, while me personally and our little rhythm section was working with a million other people. And then Jason's, after about 40 showcases, he got signed to a record deal in 2004. And we were so comfortable around each other from working with each other for 5 years that he's like, I got my band, I got my team, I got my producer. It was basically people just sticking their neck out for each other and championing each other and bucking the system to create this new sound. And that's exactly what happened. In 2004, we recorded that first record.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's absolutely amazing, and a true testament of just sticking to it and keep pushing along. So while I'm looking at like the long list of bands and musicians you've played with, has it been basically the rhythm section that you work with reaches works with each of these singers, or do they? I guess I'm curious on that side of it, because there's just so many people who you've played with. How did you facilitate those kind of interactions and those meetings?
That's a great question. Yeah, if the listeners are out there, if they want to go to richredmond.com, it's REDMOND.com, and you can see under it's a pretty involved website. There's more information there than you would ever want to know about me. But you can go under my credits, and it's again speaks to the power of relationships. Through my relationship with Jason Aldean and Kurt and Al and Tully and all of that whole team, I've been able to back up people like Bob Seger and Joe Perry and Bryan Adams and Ludacris and Kelly Clarkson and Luke Bryan and Eric Church. Those are all people that we've either Miranda Lambert, recorded with on album, or we've done TV specials with, or they've done special events with us. And then as you continue to go down that list, there is other acts that me and the two fellas have either played on their record or co-produced their record, like groups like Parmalee and Thompson Square and Thomas Rhett, and like we have played on their records or co-produced their records. And then also in those credits are people that like literally I was just plucked away as a featured session musician or a live musician to play with them. So that's why it's kind of crucial when a musician makes their list of credits that they say have toured, recorded, and or performed with. So that means I've toured with them, I've done television with them, I've recorded with them.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
With some of these, how much creative input do you have on the rhythm section? I mean, are there some musicians and bands who give you more freedom to that, or some who are just, this is how it was written, how we want it to be played, just give something so much of that? How does that part work?
It really does depend on who's hiring you and their like creative sensibilities and how much of a control freaker they are and like how much they trust their musicians. I'm finally at a point in my career when people are going to hire me. They hire me with a big trust factor, and they just know that I'm going to do my homework. I'm going to bring my A game. I'm going to show up on time. My drums are going to sound good. Once you get to a certain part in your career, 20 years in Nashville as a working professional, they go, this guy's going to bring the heat. He knows what he is doing, so let him do it. But you're always, as a hired musician, unless it's your band, you're going to be taking direction from a producer, an artist, a songwriter, the other members of the band that are recording on the floor. It's totally, music is definitely a team sport, and you have to have, it's a interesting thing because you have to have a healthy ego to be able to play the drums, because the drums are so important, right? But at the same time, you have to have enough flexibility to like weather the storm and not be offended by people telling you what to do or how to play and how to take direction. And so you're a psychologist and a coach and a player all at the same time. It's a very interesting